Assalamu alaikum. This is your boy Terrence Dante, aka Mustafa the Street Scholar. I want to talk to y'all today about food, drugs, and poison. Now, I know some people might think like, how could you make the correlation between all three? But here's the thing: nowadays, they're one and the same. And give you guys an example on how they all can work to harm you or to better you. In 2003, I lost my auntie to a terrible car crash, and the night before the accident, her and I had no, actually 2 days before the accident, her and I had some disagreements, and so I was supposed to drive her somewhere that Tuesday, and this was the Sunday that we had the argument. And so me being kind of stubborn and bullheaded, I was like, I refused to go drive the car. And so, make a long story a little less long, she ended up getting killed in a car accident, dying in a car accident. Her and my cousin at the time, I believe he was 8 or 9. But so most of 2003 and 2004, I was kind of in a fog because I was really obsessing over the last conversation her and I had, and kind of beating myself up over what had happened. And so by May of 2004, it had really started to get to me and really start to intervene with my daily life, because I was depressed and was just really obsessing about the situation and trying to think what can I have done different, and it really started to weigh heavy on my mental state. And so anyone who know me know that I don't smoke weed at all. So I was with a buddy of mine, and it was kind of that smoke some of this weed and stimulate your mind bullshit that he was kind of preaching to me. So I'm like, cool. So hit the blunt a few times, and it lasted for like 2 weeks straight where I was getting high every day. And I found out that after, and to each his own, I'm not telling people how to deal with their problems. I'm just saying, for me in this particular case, when I came down, I noticed that although my high came, although when I was high I was kind of numb to what was going on, but when I came down, it actually increased my anxiety levels. And so my anxiety was off the chart. I mean, like, just going crazy. And I had started, really obsessing, and the depression and all of the underlying issue was the way I was feeling about the accident, the guilt. But it had started to form layers, with the obsessive thinking and the anxiety. And then from the anxiety, I started having what they would quote unquote call panic attacks, which is really nothing more than a hyper, mental state, of obsessing. So I seeked out some help, and I would go to these therapists, and all they want, when I go in there, they never really help me. All they would say is, well, come back, next week, and come back this time, and come back that time. And so I'm like, fuck it, I need to get some help. So not shame. So I said, I thought to myself, the only way I can get some help is if I, say I want to harm myself and check myself into a psychiatric hospital, and then I would get some help. So there we go. Bam! I check myself into one of these psychiatric hospitals to say I need help. I'm feel like harming myself. So I'm thinking, finally I'm finna get some help. So I meet with this psychiatrist, because you don't really meet with a with the psychiatrist, all they do is basically there to prescribe medicine. But at that time, I didn't know this. So I'm telling this guy my problem. I'm like, I was this, when this happened and that happened. So I'm thinking he's really listening to me. He's like, yeah, it sounds like, you have generalized anxiety disorder. So I'm gonna give you a prescription for Zoloft. Time. So I take the Zoloft. I have a bad reaction. So he's like, oh, well, let me try something else. So he gave me a different drug. And, and kind of sent me home. So I'm taking the drugs. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to take this pill. And all of a sudden, I'm going to get the serotonin going and the dopamine, and everything in my body, and all the chemicals in my brain is going to get back to firing right. And everything's going to get back to working. So, a little time passed. And whenever I would notice when I get out of the medicine, I would run out of the medicine. I would go back in there, and he would say, how you doing? I said, well, I'm doing fine. He said, how's the medicine working? Oh, the medicine is working great. And he said, okay, here's another prescription. Another prescription. And I'm like, after a while, I'm like, man, this shit ain't working. So I go, so the next appointment I have, I go to the doctor. I said, doc, man, it's not working. So he said, I know what the problem is. I need to get you on an anti-anxiety. Here is Atarax, which was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, a generic form for Xanax. There's some Atarax, so I take it, I pop this shit, and I'm just like, oh man, it's like all of a sudden, it's like, motherfucker put me in a nice jacuzzi in my body, and I'm getting all these physical symptoms of just being warm and just like I'm skating on fucking cloud 9, but I noticed when that wore off, I was still in the same spot. So I began to do some research. And the next time I went, I said, doc, I'm sick of just prescribing me drugs. How about some cognitive therapy? And he said, well, the cognitive therapy needs to work in conjunction with the medicine. I said, well, I'm getting all medicine and no cognitive. And he was like, yeah, because, we got to get this problem under wrap first. So I'm thinking, this something don't sound right about this. And so I had, so I started doing my own research and finding out a lot about these different drugs and stuff and what they do, and I start researching about pharmaceutical companies and all of this, and then I start researching cognitive therapy, which is changing your thought process, the thought pattern, how you think. And really, when you're dealing with, because it's natural, you're going to deal with depression, anxiety, you're going to deal with all these different human emotions, and the way you deal with it is, now I know, is through changing the thought process, how you respond to different things, not how the drug make you feel. So I'm like, well, so I had it out with the doctor, and I'm like, you know what, fuck this, threw all that shit away. And since then, I've been away from all of that shit. And when I really woke up and realized, after doing years and years of research, since 2010, I haven't needed none of that bullshit. And I've been the best I've been since I've been about 16, 17 years old, because I knew that it was about cognitive therapy. It's about how you're controlling your thought process, not some magic pill, some bullshit that somebody made up in the lab that's going to help you out. And so then I also noticed that it was a lot what you eat that play a huge part in how you respond. How your brain works, because the food we eat now is just like all fucking chemicals. And is anybody out there listening to me? If you go in your cabinet, you see anything with yellow 5 in it, get that shit out of your house because that shit is poison. You know what I mean? Get rid of that bullshit. If I'm not mistaken, I think I read somewhere, I think it's banned in a lot of countries. I think the UK may be one. I know a lot of African countries ban it, but you know they use us as test dummies here in America. There's gonna be part 2 to this too, so because I got a big story, I got a lot of shit I got to get off. But back to what I was saying, if you got any yellow 5 in your house, anything with yellow 5, throw that shit out immediately. That shit is poison. Unless you want to go out and drink motherfucking gasoline or some other bullshit, get rid of yellow 5. But then I start thinking, I got a cousin, and when we were younger, they used to say, he had ADD, ADHD, whatever the fuck they want to call it now. And his mom would go when my aunt, they would go and get him Ritalin. And now ADD or ADHD is a attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyper disorder or whatever they want to call it. So when he would take the Ritalin, I would notice that still wasn't paying attention. He was just stuck. He was just high. So it never solved the problem. And when the Ritalin would wear off, he would go back to the same fucking person he was. You know what I'm saying? But they kept, and they do this a lot, you know what I'm saying, black folks. And this don't mean that I'm, anti anybody else because I'm pro-black. I'm just, pro-African. I'm not anti anything else. I'm pro-African, but I am anti-white supremacy. But that's another subject. But he would, take the medicine and he would sit there like. Now he's like 8, 9 years old at the time, and he just sit there like, and no one ever thought like, hey, this shit ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? There's no pill that can make you pay attention, people. It doesn't exist. So why the fuck did they got Ritalin? Well, they got Ritalin because Ritalin is nothing more than an experiment, okay? And basically what happens is the doctors are the client of the pharmaceutical companies and we're the client of the doctors. So it's all about getting paid. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, all these motherfuckers trying to do was keep you drugged up, you know what I'm saying, and fucked up. Because if they can keep you drugged up, okay, if they can keep you eating wrong, eating shit like yellow 5 and all of this other bullshit and McDonald's and Burger King and high fructose corn syrup, they can keep you addicted to that, then they know that, hey, when this person gets 40 or 50, we're going to keep him on he's going to be a constant customer of ours, because when this person gets 40 or 50 from all the high fructose corn syrup and McDonald's and Burger King, all that bullshit he been eating, or he or she been eating, now they need to come to us to get heart medication, diabetes medicine, fucking gout medicine, or whatever the fuck the case may be. So I began to think back and reflect on all the situations, like the situation with myself and the situation with my little cousin, and how these companies they would really just, pimp the shit out of you. But my time is going to run short, so stay tuned, because I'm coming right next with part 2, because I got a lot more shit to get off my chest. Peace.